very brightly colored and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while.
We want to be free to do what we want to do.
Were Muhammad Ali and Sonny Barker, the president of Hell's Angels.
This is 1095.
I'm trying to think when I last saw you. Actually, you didn't have kids, right? When I last saw you. So think.
No, and now I have two.
Wow, there you go.
I'm married
So it was
and have two children.
Well, congratulations. Let me start with that.
Much. Yeah.
It's,
I know.
and how is it? How's
Well,
how's
Daisy's
father life?
Daisy's 2.5, and we've got Imogen who's 6 months. Yeah, I mean, you know, just over 4 years ago, I was single, living the life, and you know, voiceovers, doing well. It was all good, and then 4 years later, moved out of London, 2 kids, wife, and actually we just sold because it's been so turbulent here. We're actually moving further out. So we're going up to Norfolk by the seaside, where we've got a house up
nice.
there. So we're gonna live up there. We decided that, you know, even if it's for a couple of years, it's just a moment. You know, London is a ghost town. Work is beyond thin on the ground in the creative industry. You know, there's just nothing going on. So kind of like, you know what, the kids are young enough and the beach is 5 minutes from the house, so why not? So yeah, really
Sounds like a good idea. And it's honestly, I keep hearing this from a lot of people this year. I think that the amount of movement within, you know, your own country, I mean, Australia particularly, I know a lot of people I spoke to there have, you know, just moved out of the cities because they realized, you know, when you get locked down for a while, kind of makes you realize how free you're not when you're in a city, I suppose. So
well, yeah, apparently here is what the sort of movement here is. A lot of those people who live, so I live 45 minutes, well, no, half an hour on the train outside of London, really nice town in Hertfordshire called Hitchin. And the house prices have just remained really high here because obviously all the people in London want to move out because they've had lockdown without gardens, and they're like, oh god, I want to move out. So, you know, price of a flat there is, you know, a decent house here. And but apparently all the people who are living in sort of these kind of towns are all going, well, this was part of our big long-term plan to move out to Cornwall or Devon, and they're all done it now. So they're all moving. So I think, you know, we've said goodbye to things like meetings. You know, I think back when, like we were saying, doing the tech, you know, you used to go, right, I've got a meeting in Birmingham, I'll be back tonight. You wouldn't do that now. No one would do that. They'd just do this.
Exactly.
You know, so this is the new normal. Okay, we talk about that all the time, but this is the new normal, and this is the way it's going to remain. You know, so I've had a real sort of downturn. You know, my obviously my 3 main things: acting, voiceovers, and corporate videos. So there's no corporate videos at the moment, and also people are just doing this instead because that's how they can do it.
Yeah.
Voiceovers, no one's making anything, so no one's really advertising at the moment. And acting, well, we couldn't shoot anything, and for 7-8 months. So, but now it's all starting again, which is good.
I was about to ask you that. Yeah, I mean, Thailand's been back for a while. Obviously, no one can get in. I mean, they're shooting now with crews of 150 making movies, but yes, and Netflix are completely focused on creating local content, creating locally, because it's literally, you know, you can't bring an actor in and stick him in a hotel and do 2 weeks quarantine. But what's the UK status on that front in terms of shoots and stuff?
Well, I think it's I mean, it's quite funny watching some of the soaps because they're all like the soaps, for example, they're all doing it socially distanced. So you just watch these scenes where people are on the other
I
side
haven't
of the
seen
room.
it.
Yeah,
No way.
They're sort of like trying to do a romantic scene, and in fact they can't do it because they're just like, I really love you, I love you too. And then you go, right, and now you go and hug, and they can't. They kind of go, you know. So it's really weird to watch. And
the thuggery in EastEnders is, so I mean, you can't punch anyone obviously when you're socially distancing as well. So
no, so I think there's a lot more rows from across the rooms. I think that's what they're doing. But I think they're even, I think in EastEnders they're using invisible screens. So literally people are kissing with a piece of film between them. It's all very odd.
There is. Yeah, that does sound odd.
I'm doing a short film next month actually. And I've just had a Zoom with those guys, and sort of was all, you know, you have to have COVID people on set. I mean, I don't really know what they do, like put your mask up. I mean, but then it's ridiculous in some senses. I did a job about 6 weeks ago, and we weren't in lockdown. We were sort of doing, part of the job was to do a voiceover, so it was a round the table voiceover. So we all had to stand outside in our masks and sort of do all the, you know, the antiseptic stuff. And we walked in. We had to walk in single file, and we were given names to sit down. And it was in a room probably about, you know, 3 meters by 3 meters. And it was like, right, shall we rehearse? So yeah, okay, everyone can take their masks off now. It's like, well, what's the point in that? Doesn't make sense, you know. So we're all sitting there with our masks on. I was like, rehearse, okay, fine. So we're spitting over each other. But yeah, it's a bit weird. But everyone's.
This has been the year. It's definitely been the year of misunderstanding. There's no consistency across the board, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of talking about this for too long. But yeah, hearing what you're saying, I mean that's in one particular industry, but it's just, you know, by country, by industry. I mean, you know, it's just the rules and the guidance are just all over the place. I mean, there's a clear kind of we don't know what's going on situation, really.
No, they're making it up as they go along. I mean, the next thing now is sort of Christmas, isn't it? You know, they've started on that now. You know, you can have something like you can have five days together, but you need to pay back 25 days in lockdown. Okay, so let's not do it then.
There's a lot of scientific logic there.
I don't know.
Credit system.
It makes no sense. But yeah.
And I really want to cast you back, man. I was just thinking this morning. I was remembering you. I'm sure you wouldn't remember. We went out in London just before I left the UK. I think it was in 90. It'd been 96. I can't remember. I know you were there because we were chatting over a beer. Now, would 96 been when you'd made a decision and you were doing some sort of formal acting training, or I don't know whether you'd finished or around that time or.
Yeah, so I would have finished. I left. So let me work this out. When did we leave school? 90, didn't we? Or 91?
Yeah. Well, I left early. I was out at 16. So yeah, I think you would have been 91. So, 92, 91,
92. Yeah, so I'd have just finished drama school, and I remember finishing drama school, and I had my first audition, and I got it, and I can remember it was for a Heineken commercial, and I got it, and I just thought, wow, that's easy, and I thought I was on the way, and then I think I had to wait a little while, and I got my first ever job was an episode of The Bill, with Zamo from Grange Hill.
That's right. I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. And then so I thought I was on my way, and I thought, oh, this is all right. This is fairly straightforward. And it was a long time after that till I got the next.
This is dead weird, mate, because my girlfriend, it's fun that she just bought me that was not planned. Did you just say a Heineken?
I did.
And then a Heineken just got delivered to me. That was, you could not script that better, and it was not scripted. So
and it's 10 o'clock here, and I could probably have one with you if I'm honest.
Yeah, well, it's I mean it's 25 past 5 on a Friday, so I'm excused for that. But so yeah, I was then away, and you know, I came back. I think we'll talk about that in a bit. Our friend's wedding, and you know, it's just so interesting seeing kind of your life change at that point. But before that, The Office. You know, you're in The Office both seasons. I remember chatting to you about that as well. How did that come about? You know, how did you end up getting in that? I remember you were saying the budgets were like, you know, next to nothing for that first series. It was a gamble. No one really knew where it was going to go. How did you land that gig? What were you expecting? And how different was it to what you were expecting once the first series came out?
So the thing about The Office is, as an actor, when you do an audition, a lot of the time you get quite annoyed. And the reason you get quite annoyed is because it can just turn into a line learning exercise. You don't always get a lot of notice, and you have to go in and you have to sort of, you know, if you've done the work, you remember the script and you learn your lines and you do it in front of the casting director, and you hope that you'll achieve the getting the part. But for a lot of actors, you know, you don't really know. You get sent a scene, so you don't really know the character. You don't really know anyone in the room. So it's very kind of nerve-wracking. It's very impersonal. And, you know, probably, to be honest, they could do it a lot better. And with The Office, what was brilliant about the audition, and this is why it's one of my favorite jobs, obviously for obvious reasons, but one of the reasons it's my favorite audition of all time is because there was no script. And what Ricky and Steve said was, come in character, don't break character, be Lee, and we'll let you know when it's finished. We can have a chat after that. So I did. I went in character. There was, and so for an actor, that's brilliant because you're actually doing what you've trained to do. You're creating as you're going. You're improvising. You know, as a musician, you riff. You know, this is exactly what you want to do. And I remember I'm a bit of a petrol head, and I remember talking. We had this conversation. It was all going quite well, and I was doing Lee, you know, just as you've seen him. And then Ricky said, "So what are you doing after this?" And I was like, "I don't know, mate. Just I'm gonna look at a car. I'm buying a new car." And I was like, "All right." So I reeled off this. I think it was like I'm looking at the Vauxhall Cavalier SRI. You know, it's got nice stock twin cams and a K and air cooler. It's quite cool. And he started laughing, and I just remember turning around, and I was in it. I was in the moment. It was brilliant, and just went, "Were you laughing at me? What? Because you're just a rich bloke who's just sitting behind a desk." And we ended up having this. I sort of was quite threatening towards him, and basically we had this kind of row, or not a row. I was just quite aggressive towards him, and said he was, taking a piss and watch your mouth and all this sort of stuff. And then he kind of like, "Okay, well, that's lovely, really good to meet you." And then he sort of stopped the interview and he went, "Okay, good." And I said, "Oh, is that it?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's it. You can go now." And I was like, "Oh God, hi, thanks very much. I'm Joel," and met him. He's like, "Oh, big sigh of relief." So I think that I'm sure that's what got me the gig, was just sort of like, that I basically threatened Ricky Gervais. And it was great. And then, from that, got the job. And I think one of the most amazing things about that job was, as you say, when we all got together, I remember the read through for the first season. And, we were in like some BBC basement room, no windows. There was an odd packet of biscuits and some cold tea if you wanted it. And we all sat round the table. And, read throughs are a real indication whether or not something's good, whether it's a drama or whatever. And I remember as we started reading, you could see people starting to look up. And when people look up, it's because it's good news, and and you connect with each other, and you start looking at eye contact, and people started laughing, and then people just started laughing more and more and more.
Brilliant.
We were going around going, "You know what? This is special." And when we did it, no one knew what they were doing. Everyone was, Ricky and Steve, they'd just been given the reins. They were like, "Yeah, go and make this program." I don't know, it was a bit like, I don't know whether it'd be any good. It was done in a disused office. So there was one lighting setup. There was one, it was all the cameras on the shoulder. So it was quite organic. It was quite, good. And they were really, really, really good at letting us improvise. I mean, I remember, I didn't have that many lines, but I remember one scene where I had some lines, and I think it's a scene when I come in and I push Martin Freeman up against the cupboard in the office. And I had a load of lines. I said to Ricky, "Do you mind if I just try this?" And he was like, "No, cool. You just do what you want." And of course that stayed in. I was like, "Yeah, that's really sort of collaborative." So that was great. And the reason I said about the BBC sort of room and the cold tea is because I always remember doing the read through for season 2. And it literally was like, "Hello, welcome to the BBC boardroom. You'll have waitress staff, you'll have waiters, waitresses. There's sandwiches and whatever you need. Just ring this bell," kind of thing. So I think from that point we knew that the series had been a bit of a hit. But yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah, right. I'm assuming it was unique in terms of the structure, right? Being a mockumentary. Had any been done before that? One's been done since, but just the whole kind of setup the whole structure was different. I remember my mum phoning me. I was in Australia, saying, "You got to watch this. You got to watch this." It was just so massive. But I don't think I'd ever seen that uniqueness of it being a mockumentary. I don't think that had really been done before. Certainly not, and been popular.
No, one of the things that people don't remember about The Office, and I'm not sure I'm quite right in this, but it was actually aired, and it got to about episode 3 or 4, and the BBC were going to pull it because no one was watching it, and it suddenly, on like the 3rd or 4th episode, people started to pick it up, and then there started to be a bit of a chatter about it. And then, in fact, what happened was they then aired it again 6 months later, and that's when everyone watched it. So it was actually out before, and it had a run, and no one really found it. Yeah, and then it just exploded, and then obviously, season 2 and the Christmas special.
That's a bit of luck, then. I mean, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, and the Christmas specials, which I think, from a writing point of view, I just think they're I think they're one of the best Christmas shows ever. I think they're amazing to watch. I think for what they, to serve the purpose of a Christmas special, I think they absolutely nailed it. And I think if you watch them today, they still stand up.
Yeah, I've not watched it since I watched it. It's funny what you said there about the it doesn't surprise me about the fact that people weren't watching it, because it's one of those things that when you watch it, you kind of like, what's going on? What's this about? It does take 3 episodes, but then it's so addictive because it's like you're watching real people, and it's really quite awkward. And I was working in an office at the time that was not too dissimilar. So, I was in an office with maybe 20% more people, but you can massively relate when you're in that kind of world, very strange.
Yeah. Well, I also think as well, I mean, if you think about it, no one had done a show about an office really, which is amazing to think that hadn't been done. And I also, I used to love it when people used to come up. They used to say, like, it was my well, I won't name him, but a relative used to, came up once and he said, I don't get it. I just don't find it funny. I don't get it. I just don't see what the humor is. And I was like, yep, because you're in it. Because that's your life. And I think, there were so many people kind of, you can imagine everyone going through the office going, morning, Brent, and the receptionist will suddenly become Dawn, and, everyone's woken up to the crack of dawn. So I think, it just hit a note, and yeah, it's become sort of iconic.
So you went on, you've done a bunch of different things, but Eastenders, it's funny, I was like addicted to Eastenders for about 4 years, but it was after you're in it. When I first come out here, actually 2014, I just started watching it. I used to watch it as a kid, and I think I did about 3 years of it, without stopping, like every episode. So, which would have been after you were in it, obviously. But picking up that gig, I mean, that I would imagine put you in the public eye a lot more, didn't it, in the office, because your part was small enough. Did you get a lot of, recognized on the street type stuff after the office, or was it EastEnders that kind of cemented that?
No, it's really weird actually. I mean, obviously EastEnders at that particular time, I mean, you've got to remember when I was in it, sort of 2004 to 2006, it was really, when the news of the world was massive. So, and all the sort of trashy mags were massive, Heat and all that kind of stuff, which, we don't hear about now. So from that point of view, yeah, I mean, it literally, I could not go to a supermarket. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk down the street. And it was crazy, and it was absolutely crazy. But I used to like, what I used to like was, obviously the office was going mad as well, and you could always see when someone was coming up, you knew that they were going to stop you and ask, some questions or whatever, which is absolutely brilliant. I love it, and it's really nice. It's a nice thing to do. I know a lot of actors don't like it, but I kind of think, well, you put yourself in front of the camera, so you might as well take everything that goes with it. And as long as people are nice. And I used to go, I wonder what, I used to guess whether or not they were Office fans or EastEnders fans, and 9 times out of 10 I was right. But you could tell there's a distinct difference.
Different type of fan. Yeah, I remember seeing you. The time when I came up was obviously our mutual friend Dunk's wedding, and I think we all lobbed you up as Roger Melly, just to make sure your ego didn't get too out of control. But it was interesting because I hadn't seen you since leaving the UK, and then I get back and we're in this pub. I'll always remember it. It was just, people sending over notes and all stuff. There was, I think there was about 15 of us in there. And that was my first kind of, experience of being around someone. I mean, I hadn't watched East End. I had no kind of perspective on it, but it was just funny to watch. I'm like, it's such a bizarre thing,
It is bizarre. And it's, I think what for me is more bizarre is the fact that, looking back, as an actor, it's like when people still say, or in early on in your career, they kind of go, what you should do? You should do films. And you go, oh, right, yeah, God, should I? Thanks. I'll just go and get a film. I don't think people appreciate sometimes how hard our industry is and how hard it is to get cast, even in the smallest parts. So when you get a job, sort of when you get cast, or when you go up for casting something like EastEnders, The Office is a real success story in all senses, because it came from nothing and it grew into this huge beast, which is brilliant. But EastEnders is something that, it's a revolving door basically of people going in and out, and it's a huge show, and you've got all these famous people in it, and when you get cast for it or go for the casting, you kind of go, I really want this job, but you've got no idea what that brings because you've never experienced it. So you're never prepared for it. And I remember getting the gig, and all I was thinking was, I can't wait to start working 5 days a week, doing what I love doing, on a show that's seen by, at that time, 14 million people every night. Wow, that's going to be amazing. It's going to be brilliant. And this is what I've trained for. This is what I've dreamt about doing. So it should be, effectively the best job in the world. And I want to stay there forever. And I remember getting the job, and, the PR lady at the time, Sharon, just sat us down and said, this is, your life is going to change now. And I was like, yeah, of course it is. Sure, it's going to be fine. And she was right. From that moment on, as soon as you're on screen, it's completely different. And
Yeah,
I don't think it's the same now. I don't. I think that side of things has very much died down, which is a good thing, because so people can just concentrate on what they, So the fame thing became not as important, but your off screen was as much as your on screen, which wasn't really enjoyable.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I remember the newspapers. Obviously, I've lived in the UK for 5 years, but the newspapers, I don't know if they're any different now, but they just looking for, I don't know whether they ran anything on you, but all they're doing is looking for dirt, right? Looking to kind of put people out there and, stories.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it was a time when that was what it was all about. And, it was part of it. But you just don't realize the kind of when you I remember I think Shane Ritchie said to me, sounds like, I'll just pick his name off the floor. Well, remember when Shane Ritchie said to me, when you go to like a Premiership match and you look around a stadium and you go, this is 60,000 people, and you go, God, that's a lot of people. You look at all those faces, you go, God, and then you go, 14 million or 10 million are watching you tonight.
Yeah,
you do realize how many people watch this show and how big it is. And to be part of it was brilliant, and it's a part of my history. And I look back on it very fondly. Obviously, like in any job, you wish you'd done things differently, maybe some of the time. But I enjoyed it. Yeah. It's a shame. I'm a comedy fan.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I can't stand it. I'm an EastEnders fan, but I mean, interesting. I think I do remember you saying that before. Just on the work front, though, I mean, it must be. I don't know how many days a week you were cast. I mean, whether it was Friday, but some of these, some people are in it pretty much. When I was watching it, you could see there's a bit of a cycle where they're giving people a day off. But I mean, just the workload in terms of learning lines must be huge, I would imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you do. I stand by this, and we've all seen those interviews on sort of This Morning when they go on and go, oh, well, we get work so hard, and it's just exhausting, and you're like, look, I'm going to be honest, it's what I trained to do, it's what I love doing, so it's not a job. Yes, there's a lot of lines to learn if you're in a big storyline, which you want to be. So you want to be in all the big storylines. So you want to have lots of dialogue. So you want to be in every scene because you're doing what you love doing. So you get on with it. And let's be honest, learning lines, when you're doing it the whole time, you develop a muscle that can make it. I mean, I remember I used to be able to pick up a scene and just look at it and learn it. If someone had chucked in a new scene, a couple of pages, you just learn it straight away. So in the context of being exhausted, you're in at 7 o'clock and you finish at 7 o'clock at night, but you've got a dressing room with a bed in it and a shower, and you're on set. It's fun. It's busy, and I think as an actor, what we want to be more than anything is busy. And so I would take that any day, being exhausted and learning lines and doing that, over sitting around waiting for another job.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be crazy not to have that attitude. I mean, it's hard enough as it is without having any kind of reluctance in working hard. Why acting? How come you even? I don't think I've ever asked you, but what was the inspiration? Where did it come from? Can you remember going, "Hey, this is what I want to do"?
Yeah, I can remember. Yeah, it was school, Matt. Yeah, it was. it was that Bedford School Theatre, and I remember actually, and the reason I remember this is because I've just bought it for my daughter who's 2.5 and read it to her the other day. When we were in the 1-4, so we would be 7, we used to do a poetry reading, and I did Stanley Holloway's The Lion and Albert, which I can still remember. I'm not going to do it, but I can still remember. And I did that, and I won, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. And then I do play after play, and I did all the, right through school, right through from 7 to 18. I was doing plays, maybe not 7, but and just knew that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I wasn't very academic, let's be honest, and I just loved being in the theatre. So for me, school was about rowing and theatre, and that was about it, really. And I just loved everything about it. So I always remember going to my dad, and I said, Dad, I want to go to drama school. And I remember him sort of looking at me after, years of private education, the blood, sweat and tears that he put into putting me there. And he kind of looked at me and went, "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I want to be an actor." I was like, "Oh, I was kind of hoping you'd go into the city." I was like, "Nah." If only I'd listened to him. So I knew straight away. So I did my drama degree, and I did my postgrad drama degree, and then away I went. Yeah.
Did you do any, apart from your 10 minutes at school, did you do any stage stuff? Did you do any theatre or not? Later on?
Yeah, I did in the early years, and it's weird because I just, again, to say people make choices, I think yes, people are stage actors or the TV actors, and that they decide. But I think at the beginning, actors take jobs. They don't have the luxury. They don't have the luxury anymore of going, I'll look at this and maybe I'll think about it. And if they do, that's great, and good luck to them. But you have to pay the mortgage at some point. And I just went down a road of getting TV jobs. So I just managed to get TV after TV. So when you're building up your CV, casting directors look at it and go, "Oh, well, he's a TV actor." No, I've just had TV jobs. So I did, I did a play, probably about 5 years ago, I think. 5 years ago, 6 years ago. That's the last play I've done. Obviously, I've done Pantone, stuff like that. I'd love to do more theatre. But again, what am I, 48 next year? Got a mortgage,
Same.
Wife, so it's like I can't really afford to do it. And obviously, there's no theatre being done at the moment, so there's not even an option to do it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a luxury to be able to go and do theatre, I think. It's you must have seen, I mean, the industry's changed like you, so you're pretty old school really when you think of it. I mean, what's your first job? Like, so early 20s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 20 years. I mean, and this year as well, which I was going to ask you, your opinions on that, because I think this year's now changed things again, as we were talking earlier. But, have you, as an industry, I mean, you've seen it change a lot over 20 years, what the difference is. Your point to fame earlier, I think it's a lot of that now is because of getting famous is like Instagram and TikTok. It's kind of, being recognized is not, hey, I've done a great job acting. There's so many different ways to be recognized. But
no, and reality TV, the birth of reality TV is kind of, it's killed a lot of creativity on screen. I think obviously reality has a place, and I don't disagree with it. I think it's great. But when TV companies realize that it's cheap to make, I mean, a program, for example, which I absolutely love, Gogglebox, it's people watching TV. I mean, who would have thought?
I've seen it. Sounds awful, but yeah,
it's great. It's hilarious. I love it. I watch it every week. But
people watching TV. So it's like the gaming thing. Another gaming one. People watching people playing games. So this is just
So we're watching people. So the audience watches people watch TV. So
wow.
Not, so snippets. So you have all these families, and they intercut it with all these families and their reactions, and it's really good. It's funny. It's hilarious. Because the people on it are brilliant. But you kind of think that 20 years ago, that'd never have flown. That'd never have worked. But it does now. And, it's cheap to make. It's really cheap to make. So they're filling, filling airtime with that kind of stuff. So dramas are so expensive to make these days. Films are expensive. So I think, and the other thing I think is really interesting as an actor when you look at sort of a career over 25 years is one thing an actor never really wants to accept is we're growing older every day. So I still look at parts and go, yeah, I could play that. I could do that. It's like the guy's 28, idiot. You can't play that. You're nearly 50. You could play his dad maybe. And you do, and you start, and it's quite interesting when you get casting come through and you go, you've gone from like lead, handsome lead to fat cafe owner or dad. And so you kind of realize, I'm getting older.
I mean, there's a benefit to that, because actually in any other career, when I look at the tech industry, which I've spent a lot of time in and are in now professionally, going and getting a job when you're 55, 60 is really challenging. Whereas at least of an actor, there'll be a part with someone who's older, right? I mean, you might not want that part, but at least there are parts for older people.
Yeah, and I think that you do your sort of 20s, and you hope that you'll be catapulted somewhere, and become a big movie star or theatre actor or whatever. And then that doesn't happen, so you sort of cling on for a bit, and then you sort of do your like 40s where it's quite quiet, unless again you sort of hit it. And then now I'm on that stage like, well, maybe there'll be a slight renaissance, and I'll maybe there'll be a part somewhere that I'll fit in. So you keep going, but I think a lot of my especially this year, people have had to chuck in the towel, and I have been so lucky, having a very successful voiceover career and doing other things. So I've always done other things, and not that it's ever that acting is secondary, it's my love, but I've been real about it, and I just think that people have to be real about it, and they think that they're just going to go and immediately make it. Well, yeah, some people will, but probably it won't be you, and I think there's still loads of luck involved and timing and all that kind of thing. So I've always done something else, and I think that's really important. And that would be my advice to anyone starting out, would be make sure you have something else to do.
Yeah, that was, funnily enough, that was going to be the closing question. I won't close it, but yeah, is advice, but I think it's really valid. I mean, I know some actors here, quite a few in Thailand, and all of them have other interests. I mean, it's to try and support yourself through an acting career, unless you are a movie guy, unless you're kind of up there, is really, really challenging. So which was the other thing I was going to ask. Did you ever throw yourself into the kind of, hey, I want to go down that movie lane? Or, I mean, was your agent pushing on that? Or because the Eastenders, again, people get branded, don't they, quite easily in East?
Yeah,
I've noticed, you see people go in it and they come out at the right time, and then they go try and go to Hollywood. Or
I think, I think there's always been that slight stigma. So when you do a soap, you have it great for 2 years, and you kind of, you see these people who are sort of, they've been in it for a while, and they get bored. Like in any job, you get bored, and they'll go, well, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to leave on a high. And then you see them come back again with a sort of tail between their legs, going, actually, can I have my job back? And you don't realize that actually it is the best job in the world in a way, because you are doing what you love doing. You're getting really well paid. You're you've like in any work, you've got your mates at work that you make, and there's nothing worse than doing a job where you've got a couple of days on a movie, and you turn up and you sort of like, hi, and they go, oh, hi, and the production manager sort of meets you, and they go, yeah, your trailer's over there, if you just want to go in there. And you go in there, and it's cold, and you sort of sit there for 5 hours while you wait, and then you come on set, and then you get this kind of like, because it's all very busy and fast, and someone will say, this is such and such, oh, this is Joel, he's playing such and such, and then you finish, and they cut, okay, thanks very much, back to your trailer. So it's really, it's, the glamour is not what everyone thinks it is. So doing a soap is actually a really good thing. My point was, yes, that the stigma is that you leave a soap, and a lot of directors who are young and they want to make a name for themselves sort of pick up your casting, they look at it and go, no, he's done soap, I want someone who's an unknown, I want someone who's going to be challenging. It's like, well, actually, technically, I mean, people who've worked on soap, we get labeled as soap actors, which I think is really unfair. People who've worked on soap technically are amazing because they work with multi-camera. They can learn a scene within 10 30 seconds. They know exactly where their marks are. They know exactly how to move around a set. So technically they're more proficient than a hell of a lot of other actors. So I think that's slightly unfair, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And actually I'm sure there are probably a lot that have done it. You're right. I mean, actually it's a great foundation, a couple of years and then you shoot off. I remember when I was watching EastEnders 2014, there was a kid in it, Ian Beale's stepson, I think he was playing. I forget his name, but I was watching him, and it was when I was working on my script, and I was like, I'd love this guy in this part, and I was watching thinking, there's just, you could tell he was kind of on that. He had like a part-time part, and he was in it for about 2 years. Suddenly I see him cropping up now in Hollywood stuff, and by the time he gets big, you'll have forgotten. And anyway, no one in the US knows EastEnders anyway, so I think probably as a foundation for throwing yourself down the kind of US Hollywood path, it's probably one of the best things to do.
I think that if I had one regret, my biggest regret is not taking a year and just giving it a year in LA. I wish I'd done that. I didn't. I think I got on the kind of voiceover track, and it was just really going so well that I just felt I couldn't leave for a year. And I've seen some mates go over there and make it really big. So yeah, people I know. I mean, like if you look at Andy Lincoln, Walking Dead, what a gig. Tom Ellis,
yeah, of course.
Tom Ellis was in EastEnders with me at the time. Tom went off and did Lucifer, So I mean, some guys have made it huge over there. So yeah,
it is a networking thing, definitely. I mean, having gone to the AFM and stuff, you just, of course, a lot of it is about acting, but actually you go over there and it's literally meeting with people and networking, and I mean, that whole place is about network and contacts and community and favors, and it's just not my as an actor I can see you would literally just have to throw yourself into it for a year.
I mean,
it's a gamble.
And what we see now is, I mean, we're talking about sort of the younger generation, and we're talking about reality TV and stuff. The confidence that these guys have now, as opposed to when we were younger, you were sort of taught to take a step back and be invited into the conversation and stuff like that, typically British. But now the confidence of these young guys is amazing. It's just, they're on the front foot the whole time. They are selling themselves. Like you watch things like even like The Voice Junior and things like that. Voice Kids, whatever it's called. These kids have got so much confidence. Even like my 2.5-year-old, she's at nursery, and she bounds in full of it, like, come on, full of attitude. I never had that. But hey, like I said, we're nearly 48 or 48. So I mean, that's a
Cheers for reminding me. We must be. When is your birthday? We must be roughly around
March.
Oh, so is mine. When is yours in March?
Yeah, I thought yours was March for some reason. 18th. Yours is really similar, isn't it?
25th. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're
A week later.
You're a week older. There you go.
Hey.
But you're right. We are getting older. You still so you're doing the voiceover stuff, and you're making a short movie. Are you still focused on working as an actor? Are you still out there kind of auditioning? And
I am, yes, I am doing it. I mean, obviously at the moment, this year's been pretty much a write-off, although bizarrely, as I said, I did a job and I'm doing a film next month. But actually I took this year and I not retrained, but I trained up as which I've always found really interesting, as a coach. So I'm now a performance coach. I'm coaching NLP and hypnosis and things like that. So yeah, I've got a little practice going and working my way around sort of doing that. So I very much within the corporates about behavior and body language, and I do performance with sort of people who have a problem with public speaking or stress and anxiety. People that do conferences like that. So if an MD's got a CEO's got to do a big speech, I go in and I help them train and do sort of go through their script and things like that. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm really enjoying it. And so it's kind of like bringing all those acting elements together. And I do workshops, behavioral workshops with sales teams, and I bring other actors in, and we sort of play parts and role play and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. It's really good.
Yeah, I've got a friend here actually who's a theatre actor and does exactly the same now. And it's, he's constantly busy actually. So he goes, he's originally from the UK and he's in before the kind of stopping of flights. He was often in Singapore teaching, using storytelling and acting techniques to teach, business leaders how to communicate better with teams, and really, really interesting space.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm doing that. It's good.
Cool. Look, well, before we close off, Muay Thai. I'm in Thailand, but I got to thank you because actually, I'm doing Muay Thai 3 times a week. I did it because I think when we met in that pub in London, which was about 4 years ago. Could it be? How old are your kids? Yeah. I think you just come from a Muay Thai class. And you were raving about it, and then you were talking about, I think, a mate or a trainer or something who'd gone down to Phuket or Khao maybe, or
yes, because he was quite near to you, I think.
Well, no, I at the time I spent time in Khao Lak. So anyway, you planted a seed, and now I've started doing it, and I absolutely love it. It's the most awesome workout. And when we were messaging, I apologize, I forgot that the gyms are all shut, because you're like, when you said you haven't been able to do it, I was thinking, because he's a dad and got kids. But you meant you just can't. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm honest, so when we moved out, I actually stopped. The thing is, the gym membership was becoming like, I think my gym membership went up to £100 a month, and then I was paying 40 quid a session. I was working out like I was paying £400 a month just to box. And when we moved here, there's a boxing gym here. And I'll be totally honest with you, I haven't, unfortunately, picked it up. I've probably been 2 years since I've done it, purely because I've got kids and you just don't get any time at the moment. But it's something I very much want to pick back up.
Yeah, well, cheers for that.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it.
I do. I go with the girlfriend. We try and go 3 times a week. It's awesome. Such a good workout. Love it. So
and there, it must be amazing because the guys there are unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. It's dead easy, and it's really kind of like everything in Thailand. It's unorganized and organized all at the same time. That's kind of, I think, that would be my quote for how this country runs. Mate, awesome to catch up, and cheers for joining the podcast. Buddy. And no good to hear things are well. And I'm
going to take a picture because I was on the Zoom last night to Rich and Stu, and they both send their regards, and they say hi.
Awesome. Well, I will. Yeah, I've got a bit of a group WhatsApp going with him, but good to see you well, and the move to Norfolk.
Yeah.
Hope that goes well, and congrats on the family and everything. So
thanks, buddy. Yeah. And I'll leave you to your beautiful sunset, I imagine, and your beer.
Thank you, mate.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Cheers.
Bye.
The two were Muhammad Ali and Sonny Barger, the president of the Hells Angels.
This is 1095.